We're privileged to listen to Brother Anthony Morris, and he's going to deliver the gripping talk, "This is It." I hope I rendered justice to announcing that title, Brother Morris.
I'll talk to you later. I ruined my introduction, but that's all right. But I think all of you would agree how much we enjoyed the museum video and hearing Brother Fred Franz, his voice, talking about after the assassination of the Archduke, that the brothers said, "Aha, there it is. There it is, what we've been waiting for." Well, that's very stirring, and then we would have the critics saying, "Yeah, but you people had other expectations that were not realized," and et cetera, you know. But it's amazing that even the world recognized this was unique, 1914. See, in fact, I've had this for many years. I want to show it to you. It's the New World magazine, and it was widely read at the time, and I guess I remember about 1931 they went out of business. But here, End of All Kingdoms in 1914, Millennial Dawners 25-Year Prophecy. Widely read, other newspapers covered it. They made comments here about the terrific war outbreak in Europe has fulfilled an extraordinary prophecy. For a quarter of a century past, through preachers and through press, the international Bible students, best known as Millennial Dawners, have been proclaiming to the world that the day of wrath prophesied in the Bible would dawn in 1914. Look out for 1914, has been the cry of the hundreds of traveling evangelists. And I did appreciate very much how the yearbook in 1975, considering our modern day history, made this beautiful quote: "Disappointments about going to heaven in 1914 really were very minor compared with the great expectations realized in connection with that year." And it's amazing, during the first 6 months of 1914, nothing happened. And they were being ridiculed, and then the Archduke is assassinated. This one was particularly released August 30th, 1914. Millions dying in World War I. So it's Brother Franz's statement that really gave the idea for the theme here. This is it. The question arises, will we have one or more times in the future, or even now, when we can say, this is it? See, and have that same exciting fervor because of Bible prophecy. Well, let's begin with this one here. Find Daniel chapter 11. Daniel chapter 11. And we're going to read here verse 40, or half of it. "In the time of the end, the king of the south," here in Daniel 11:40, "will engage with him in a pushing." So, the governing body has been prayerfully considering recent events. And we know that in 1991, the Soviet Union came to an end. So who is the king of the North? Well, after prayerfully considering it and the matter of the pushing, we're assuring you that what we see after prayerfully considering it is that Russia and its allies, king of the North. Now, here's some reasoning. See, the Soviet Union disbanded. Russia came up from the rubble of the Soviet Union along with its allies. And here's some of the facts. Two things have become apparent. Russia and its allies are continuing to engage in a pushing with the king of the South, and we'll get to that pushing point shortly. And the second, they are taking the lead in persecuting and opposing God's people. Now, notice what the pushing includes: electronic espionage, computer attacks, trade wars, and that's what they call them, and the hostile flooding into surrounding territory. These are recurring features of the news headlines. You're aware of them. So some wonder, well, has the king of the north been inactive? Well, no. It appears he's never been this busy with the pushing with the king of the south. So this is it. At this point, we're confident to share with you Russia and its allies are the king of the north, and they're engaged in this pushing. In fact, last month, they had the largest war games, Russia did, since the Soviet Union was in existence, way back in the 80s. And they had their allies with them in the war game. So we're confident this is it. This is the king of the north, and that's what's involved at this time with the pushing, locking horns with each other. So is there going to be another time related to Bible prophecy where the faithful slave will be able to say to you, this is it? Well, one that we're all very familiar with, and especially this audience here in Newburgh, you've been in the truth for decades. Notice the very familiar thoughts from 1 Thessalonians chapter 5. And we're going to read verse 2 and verse 3. 5, 2, and 3. For you yourselves know very well that Jehovah's day is coming exactly as a thief in the night. Whenever it is that they are saying peace and security, then sudden destruction is to be instantly on them, just like birth pains on a pregnant woman, and they will by no means escape. Now, so that we have the clear thinking, published comments regarding these two verses we read, we'll take you back to September 15th, 2012, Watchtower. Quoting, as used here, Jehovah's Day refers to the period that will start with the destruction of false religion and will culminate in the war of Armageddon. However, just before that day of Jehovah begins, world leaders will be saying peace and security. This may refer to one event or to a series of events. Nations may think they are close to solving some of their big problems. So here's the question, and it's understood that it would be asked. Will the faithful slave be able to, at a certain time, say to the brotherhood, this is it? This is what we've been waiting for. This is the peace and security prophecy. Well, keep this comment in mind from a Watchtower 2004, February 1st, page 21. Since Bible prophecies are often fully understood only after they are fulfilled or are in the process of fulfillment, see, isn't that interesting? So keep that in mind. We'll come back to it, and that happens to be the case. The prophecy is fulfilled. Oh, okay. But see, we'll come back to that statement from the Watchtower shortly, but just consider, especially those of you here, many of you are aged, and you'll remember, many of you are in the truth at the time, what about the year 1986? See, the United Nations was proclaiming prior to January of 1986 that, get ready. They wanted the governments to put their arms down for at least a year. International Year of Peace. Whoa. See, and if you were in the truth back then, you're like, okay. So they were all big. In fact, the Pope at that time gathered all these religious leaders over there to Assisi, Italy, and they're all over there praying to who they pray to, and having this fervor for peace for the earth. Well, how did the faithful slave handle all that? See, So this honors Jehovah's faithful slave serving at that time. Here's what was published in the 85 Watchtower, October 1st, page 18. Now, this is some months before. That all started in 1986. Here's what was stated. Christians cannot say in advance exactly when the Great Tribulation will strike, period. Jehovah has not revealed that day or the hour. Thus, when, for example, the United Nations declares the year 1986 an International Year of Peace, Christians watch the event with interest, but they cannot say in advance whether this will prove to be the fulfillment of Paul's words. Nonetheless, we kept on the watch, but God's Spirit was guiding his people, particularly the faithful slave. They were not only faithful, they were discreet, and they did not say, this is it. This is the fulfillment of 1 Thessalonians chapter 5. No. See. But if you're still there, go back to 1 Thessalonians chapter 5. Just something to keep in mind here, that sometimes we'll read verse 2 and 3 and leave out verse 4. He writes, but you, brothers, you are not in darkness, so that that day should overtake you as it would thieves. So thieves are doing their thievery when it's dark, but we're sons of light. So that's not going to catch us. The faithful ones worshiping the true God, obedient to this earthly part of his organization. And so the question comes up, if you go back to that quote from 2004 Watchtower, see, prophecies are only fully understood only after they are fulfilled, but we also said, or are in the process of fulfillment. So, will the faithful slave be able to say, in the process of the fulfillment of this prophecy from 1 Thessalonians, this is it? That's what we've been waiting for? We'll have to wait and see. So, but there's a word of caution here. I want to pass on to you because we're all human. We must keep on the watch, but please, just don't be gullible. You hear a world leader say something about peace, and then they start emailing or something else with social network. This is it. See, leave the channel to handle such matters. If the faithful slave is moved by God's Spirit to say that to the brotherhood, and that's his will, fine. But please don't be gullible. Stick with the way Jehovah wants this to operate, and he'll bless your obedience. Now, you'll remember Jehovah's Day begins as they're saying peace and security. And turn to Revelation chapter 17. What stirring words are familiar with, but it does nourish our figurative hearts when we read these. Chapter 17, verses 15, 16, and 17. He said to me, the waters that you saw where the prostitute, the world empire, false religion is sitting, mean peoples and crowds and nations and tongues. And the 10 horns that you saw in the wild beast, these will hate the prostitute and will make her devastated and naked, and they will eat up her flesh and completely burn her with fire. For God put it into their hearts to carry out his thought, yes, to carry out their one thought, by giving their kingdom to the wild beast until the words of God will have been accomplished. Now, this is what's going to happen. And when you think about it, this is just mind-boggling. They have no plans as such, the governments at this point. See? So Jehovah forces one part of Satan's system to destroy another part. Only the Almighty God can do that. So when they do destroy Babylon the Great and all of this is taking place on the earth, you brothers are not going to need a breaking news update. Around the globe, you're going to say, this is it. The Great Tribulation has started. And frankly, for those that worry sometimes, during the Great Tribulation, as these events unfold, you're not going to be terrified. No. You're going to stand up straight, lift your heads up, and say, "This is it. Our deliverance is here."
Thank you very much, Brother Morris, for heightening our eagerness for what lies ahead in the near future, and thank you for removing the veil from the King of the North.